5 rookie running backs who I believe can be league winners, top 24 scorers in fantasy football leagues this season. I'm going to break down each of those 5 running backs in detail to help you win a fantasy championship this season. A key part of my rookie valuation process is actually doing projections for each and every rookie, as well as every player in the NFL. So I go team by team, do a full in-depth breakdown, project out all 32 players to really help you get an idea, not just the long-term value of rookies, but their actual year one impact. Because we know that's not only going to help you this year, but when a rookie hits in the first year, their value skyrockets. So it's a really important part of my process. My full projections for all 32 teams, every player that's even mildly, potentially, possibly fantasy relevant is in the projections. And that is available over at patreon.com/rookiebigboard. The link to get the full projections will be in the episode description. But I'm showing you a pretty detailed look at it here in this episode as we go through the top 5 rookie running backs. And let's start here with the obvious candidate. It's Ashton Jeanty. Now, he is my highest projected rookie running back again for the 2025 season. But let's take a look at the full Las Vegas offense to really get a full idea of Jeanty's performance this year. I also will finish up talking with each player, a historical comparison, a comparison for where their production is going to be this year to give you an idea. So a lot of good points, a lot of good data here for you to soak in as you're considering when you may or may not be drafting these rookie running backs in seasonal leagues. So Ashton Jeanty, it's a pretty aggressive projection, but it's certainly not an unrealistic one. I think the key when you're looking at the Raiders offense to understand is I know when we think Pete Carroll, we think beast mode, we think Marshawn Lynch. If you go back and look at Pete Carroll's offenses, they're actually not run first. In terms of snap share, he actually leans pretty heavy on the passing game, even with Geno Smith in Seattle. So I think that's important to keep in mind when you're thinking about the Raiders' overall offense. It's 460 total carries in my projection. That's 45% of the projected snaps. That's pretty on par with historical trends for Pete Carroll, right? That doesn't mean there aren't plenty of touches to go around for Ashton Jeanty because there's really an overall lack of competition for touches. As you can see here, I have Ashton Jeanty at 52% of the rushing market share in the Las Vegas Raiders backfield. That's a huge number, folks. There's very few running backs that are going above that number. You're thinking Saquon Barkley. You're thinking Jonathan Taylor, right? And you certainly could put Ashton Jeanty at that type of projected market share, but I try to be as realistic as I can when giving these projections. And I think it's pretty healthy on its own. So I have 240 carries, another 41 receptions. So we're talking nearly 300 touches year one for Ashton Jeanty. I think he's going to be pretty efficient, 5.1 yards per carry. That's where I'm aggressive in this projection. That gets him over 1,200 rushing yards. You look at his explosive skill set, his contact balance, and most importantly, his vision. I think that's going to serve him very well in the Raiders offense. And that's why I have a pretty aggressive 5.1 yards per carry projection on him. The key is going to be the touchdowns. There is a worry in the Las Vegas offense, right, that the offense just won't move that well. It won't be in the red zone that often. But when you look at potential red zone threats through the passing game, you really can't come up with a lot of candidates, right? Past Brock Bowers, past maybe Michael Mayer. There's not that, key X boundary red zone threat type wide receiver. And so I think that they are going to lean on Jeanty a decent amount in the red zone. He certainly showed at Boise State he can win in short yardage situations. He can win with lower body strength. He can win with contact balance. He can push the pile forward. So although Las Vegas might not be, near the end zone at, let's say, the top third rate in the NFL, I think when they get there, Jeanty will be efficient with those opportunities. So 9 rushing touchdowns One thing I think that's really important to keep in mind with Geno Smith, I mentioned that him and Pete Carroll had a high pass rate in Seattle. One thing to keep in mind is that Geno Smith is a bit of a check down king. And for fantasy purposes, we love a running back paired up with a check down king, right? Go back to last season in 2024, Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet alone saw 105 targets. And there were good targets. Those two running backs caught 88% of those. I would put Zach Charbonnet above average in terms of running backs with receiving ability, but I think Kenneth Walker is just about league average, and that's not a knock on him by any means. And so you don't necessarily have to be a high-profile pass-catching running back is what I'm saying. So I think Ashton Jeanty's skill set absolutely checks out. He's got catch and turn ability. He can win in traffic. We saw that on display at Boise State. So Ashton Jeanty, he's a high draft pick. He's going to get a lot of opportunity. It's not the most shocking projection that you could put out there. But if you compare his overall 2025 season, I've got him at running back 9. So he will be a week in and week out running back 1 for me. Wouldn't shock me if there's a week or two where he puts up a multi-touchdown game, goes over 150 yards. It is the running back 1 on the week. But I think a top 10 projection weekly is a pretty solid spot to be in. If you look at the running backs right next to him in my seasonal projections, you've got Jonathan Taylor, who I've been drafting everywhere this offseason at a good value at running back 8. James Cook, running back 10. That's a pretty nice spot to be in for a rookie running back. Certainly somebody that I'm willing to be aggressive drafting. I'm not worried about adding him to my seasonal leagues. I don't think this is a case of a guy who's going to need time to get ramped up. Week 1, he's going to be hitting the ground running. Sometimes it can help for me to have a historical comparison, right? If I can't quite in my mind, projections can be a little tough sometimes to visualize. It helps for me to share, a historical comparison, right? So when you think about the type of impact that Ashton Jeanty could have on your seasonal roster, I want you to think about the type of rookie season and the type of impact Jahmyr Gibbs had on rosters in 2023. It was massive. And if you drafted Jahmyr Gibbs in seasonal leagues, you were very, very happy about that instant return. So that's kind of your comparison point. You should feel pretty confident drafting Ashton Jeanty. You should feel very confident in that selection. Even as early as the mid to late second round, that tends to be where I see him going. I am completely comfortable with drafting him there. The next highest projected running back for me is Omarion Hampton of the Chargers. And I'll put a quick plug in. The Omarion Hampton, he really was the inspiration for this video. I did a full detailed written article on him for the Rookie Big Board newsletter. If you want to check that out, that link will be in the episode description as well. And that is a completely free resource for you. So if this is the first time you're watching a Rookie Big Board video, you're liking it, you want to get a little bit more, definitely check out that link. And I'm going to go into way more detail in that article necessarily than I will in the video, but I'm still going to break him down pretty in depth here. So let's take a look at this Chargers backfield. And as we've seen over the last week or so, it's definitely an evolving situation for Omarion Hampton and for the offense in totality. One thing to keep in mind that's really influencing the way that I view the Chargers offense this year compared to maybe where consensus views it more. We saw last season Jim Harbaugh really looked to, quote, establish the run in the first 4 games of last season. Justin Herbert averaged 22.7 passing attempts through the first 4 games in 2024. The Chargers went 2-2. The offense didn't look to be where it needed to be. I think we could all be honest with ourselves and say J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, they weren't really the running backs that Jim Harbaugh needed to be able to, have that run-first offense that he is known for, both in his time in college and his previous stops in the NFL. So Harbaugh makes the adjustment, posts that week 5 bye week, and he really leans into the passing game from that point on. So from week 6 on, Justin Herbert averaged 32.2 passing attempts per game. So over 10 more passing attempts per game. That's a huge tone shift. And the reason I say this is if you look at the offseason moves, they went and signed Najee Harris before the draft. They used first-round draft capital on Omarion Hampton. They made some priority free agent signings in Mekhi Becton, Andre James along the offensive line. I think Jim Harbaugh wants his second shot, right? He wants to get back to establishing the run. And I don't think we're going to go all the way back to those first 4 weeks of Justin Herbert, because my fellow Herbert truthers, I know you're getting a little nervous by this, right? Because that was a little slow for us. So I'm not saying Herbert's going to go back to 22 attempts per game, but maybe 26, maybe 27, right? I don't think it's going to be that 32 number that they finished the season with last year. So that bodes well for Omarion Hampton, who hypothetically we thought until maybe, let's say 10 days ago, we thought he was in a split backfield. And he still is, but we've got a curious case here with Najee Harris. We obviously have the injury news. It's still murky. Some reports were coming out that the team hadn't even evaluated the injury until recently. Some folks are saying it's overblown. He will start the preseason on the NFI list. That's not good. So I think all of that to say, I'm going to push Najee Harris, right? He's really going to be the core of this rushing offense. I have him at 44% of the rushing market, and I have Najee Harris at 20% of the rushing market. Just to be transparent with you, before the injury news came out, I had Najee Harris at 30% of the market, but I did distribute his extra 10% of market share to Rocket Sanders, to Hassan Haskins, and about 4% to Omarion Hampton. So I was already definitely in on Hampton. I already definitely saw him as the lead back. 231 carries on the ground. If you're familiar with his profile from college, power back, smashes in between the tackles. I like his ability to win in short, tight space, good contact balance. And so I feel confident with that 8 rushing touchdowns, the 5 yards per carry, over 1,150 rushing yards. This is going to be an instant impact type of running back. Here's where, honestly, I might be too conservative on the projection. You're going to hear me use that word a lot because I tend to be conservative with my projections. I'm the rookie hype guy. I talk about these guys all year. I check myself, right? Because I want to be realistic. And especially when we're thinking about seasonal impact, I want to make sure I'm giving sound, processed advice. And so I tend to be a little bit conservative in that sense. 39 targets. I have Hampton catching 75% of those for 29 receptions. Hampton has great hands. He's not a big man that I'm concerned about. He didn't get a lot of targets in the passing game at college just because they wanted to use him on the ground and they needed to keep him fresh. And I kind of went with a very similar process in that way. These numbers are very similar to what J.K. Dobbins was able to do last year in the offense as the lead back. And so I think that you can take Omarion Hampton and kind of plug him into that. And keep in mind, too, Najee Harris, good pass-catching running back. So if he gets on the field, if he is healthy, he could also eat up some of those extra targets. But the emphasis here, the reason I brought that up is I just want to be clear. I think Omarion Hampton has the skill set for it. In terms of the 2025 season, I have him as running back 13, 51 overall. So a really nice draft pick, a good return if you're drafting him anywhere after the early 5th round, let's say mid to late 5th round. Seasonal comparisons, he's right behind Josh Jacobs. He's right before Bucky Irving, right? These are guys that are going higher than that range. Right now, Omarion Hampton is running back 20 in ADP. I think it's an absolute smash value, huge value there when it comes to Omarion Hampton. And a historical reference here, Kenneth Walker in 2022. If you think about the way that he had an impact on that offense, he was really just a week in, week out, steady producer. Not a ton of peaks, not a ton of valleys, and I think that's where you're going to get with Omarion Hampton. Borderline running back 1, borderline top 12 fantasy scorer each and every week. Some weeks will be higher, some weeks will be lower, but probably staying in that running back 6 to 18 range really consistently. And you could do much, much worse than a consistent running back in the 5th round of your seasonal drafts. All right, we're going to move on here to TreVeyon Henderson in the New England backfield. And I should point out, I'm going to do 5 running backs on this episode. All of these running backs profile out as top 24 scores. I'm curious to see if folks are interested. This is the first time I've really done a video like this. So if you're into it, if you want to see more, if you want to see me get into the wide receivers, and if you want to see me get deeper into the running backs, do maybe a sleeper running backs, the guys I have between 24 or 25 and 48 overall, You got to leave me a comment. You have to let me know that you'd be interested in that, because I really enjoyed this, sharing my projections out with you, but want to make sure that that enjoyment is mutual. All right, let's get into TreVeyon Henderson. This is one I think folks are a little bit timid on here, because you do have Ramondre Stevenson, you do have a new offensive coordinator, you still have a young quarterback, kind of unproven wide receiver core. I mean, there's just a lot of moving pieces in this New England Patriots offense. That being said, I'm in on TreVeyon Henderson. I believe in him. I believe in his instant impact. You look at the Josh McDaniels approach, he wins on the ground. From 2012 to 2019, he ranked in the top 10 in rushing attempts. That was his last stint with New England. Every single year in that time frame, he finished top 10 in rushing touchdowns and top 10 in rushing yards in 6 of those years. So all but 2 years, very consistently wins on the ground. And you have to think with TreVeyon Henderson there, high investment, early draft capital, the Patriots made it a priority to add Henderson to their roster. They're going to want to use him. I think this myth of TreVeyon Henderson being a committee back is overrated. I really do. You go back to his true freshman season at Ohio State, he was perfectly fine being the lead back. Then he was he had some health, kind of nagging injuries, and that's why he was kind of a split guy for a couple of years at Ohio State. And then, he decides to come back. When TreVeyon Henderson decided to return to Ohio State, the Quinshon Judkins thing was not wrapped up in officials. So he didn't necessarily know that he was coming back to be a committee back. And if you're the Buckeyes, you're obviously not going to say no to either one of those guys. They worked out well. They won the national championship, and they did well as a set of rotational runners. But that doesn't have to be who TreVeyon Henderson is. Nothing about his skill set says that he can't handle a large workload. Physical runner, he's got good vision. He wins inside, he wins outside. He's great in pass protection. He's got good hands, so he can be a 3-down running back. There's really no concerns for me in terms of his ability to carry a large workload. So I have him in my projections at 240 carries. It's probably the highest you're going to find out there. I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty conservative. Not with this one. I'm in on TreVeyon Henderson. I think he's going to go over 1,100 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, and I think he's going to contribute to the passing game as well, 226 receiving yards. So I'm in on Henderson. I'm ready to write off Ramondre Stevenson. Maybe it's too quick. He's an inherited running back from this coaching staff. He hasn't necessarily been the most consistent. He hasn't necessarily produced at the highest rate. So I'm ready to move off from Ramondre Stevenson. They're going to use him, 140 carries. That's not nothing, but I don't think it's going to be enough to really threaten TreVeyon Henderson's ability to be a high-end running back to score. And that's where I've got him in the projections. Running back 17, 58 overall. So we're talking about a guy who's going to return good value as you get into the 6th round of your seasonal drafts. I think that's just about where you're going to get him. And so a good selection in that mid-6th round. He's going to pair up, James Conner is right ahead of him. I'm still bullish on James Conner. Kenneth Walker just behind him in the projections. Those two guys, again, steady producers. I think you're going to get that with TreVeyon Henderson. We're going to go back to 2019 to think about a historical comparison. And you're going to think about Josh Jacobs. All right. A little bit of upside, a little bit of week-over-week explosiveness, but overall he's going to soak up the carries, going to be a bit of a grinder, and he's going to be able to contribute primarily on the ground, but also through the passing game as well. All right, we got 2 more running backs here, and these are guys that are pretty much been paired up through the entire process, at least post-draft, right? Because they're going right next to each other in ADP and rookie drafts. They're probably going to be going right next to each other in ADP and seasonal drafts. That's Kaleb Johnson and RJ Harvey. I do currently have Kaleb Johnson projected just a little bit higher than RJ Harvey. So let's start by talking about the Pittsburgh offense. And I almost feel like we have to start with the Arthur Smith of it all, right? He's top 4. Say what you want. Say what you want about Arthur Smith. He hates Kyle Pitts, whatever. Not a problem anymore, for us for fantasy purposes. Say what you want about Arthur Smith, but as a coordinator, top 4 in rushing attempts from 2022 to 2024. So even, as in Atlanta, 2 years, and then the last year as the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, it was a priority to run the ball. And not only did he finish top 4 in rushing attempts, but he finished top 11 in rushing yards. So they were definitely moving the ball on the ground, and I think that Pittsburgh is going to continue to want to do that. Say what you want. I don't know if I want to put all my chips in the Aaron Rodgers basket, and I doubt Arthur Smith does either, right? Now, Jaylen Warren will be a factor, and I think maybe that's what cuts into Kaleb Johnson more. But I think Jaylen Warren will be exactly that. He'll be a factor. He'll be a spellback. He's going to be a guy who's going to get the ball, and he's just going to kind of chew it up, right? Grind up the game, slow it down. But I think Kaleb Johnson is going to get the chance to be a little bit more explosive. It's a good scheme fit here in Pittsburgh. Folks will know throughout the entire draft process, I was a little bit lower on Kaleb Johnson than consensus. And I said, I laid out the qualifications for a perfect fit. I needed a perfect fit scheme-wise, opportunity-wise for Kaleb Johnson in order to be in on him. And Pittsburgh literally was the team. They drafted him. I'm in on him, right? They lined up for me. 230 carries. I do have a lower efficiency rate for Kaleb Johnson, 4.5 yards per carry. Lower than some of the guys I've talked about today, but certainly not bad by any means. 7 rushing touchdowns. I think he's going to have some ability to contribute on the ground. Kaleb Johnson is what I'm calling a modern workhorse, right? This is, if you're not familiar with working with projections, it can be a little shocking. He's got a 45% rushing market share, 8% receiving market share. And I'm sitting here and saying that he's a workhorse rate. That kind of is a workhorse rate, folks. If you're getting over 40%, that player has a real good shot of being a top 24 scorer, a running back 2 for fantasy purposes, at least. Anything above a 40% rate is actually really high in today's NFL. So if you're thinking, man, Kaleb Johnson, 45%, I thought he was going to have a huge piece of the offense. That's a huge piece of the offense. It really is. And you're going to see, Gainwell, Patterson, Sturman, all these guys fit into my projections. You can't do good projections without putting every single player in it. That's why it's tedious and not a lot of folks do it, but it's really important in my process. So Kaleb Johnson, I think he's going to really take the lead in this offense. Running back 22 overall, 73 on the season. So that now we're moving into the 7th round in terms of value. So a round later than TreVeyon and Henderson. And I do think folks kind of see a different teardrop, right? Ashton, Jeanty on his own, Omarion, Hampton, TreVeyon, Henderson in a tier, and then Kaleb Johnson and RJ Harvey in a tier, right? Kaleb Johnson right next to David Montgomery, and right next to Chuba Hubbard in terms of the seasonal running back comparisons. And I'm going to go back to 2019 for David Johnson. Just got a ton of volume. Wasn't the most efficient. It kind of got him a bad reputation off the bat, but he's made a good career out of it. I could see Kaleb Johnson winning in a very similar way. And I've already mentioned him, the last running back that I'm going to talk about here, the last guy that fit into my top 24 scores is RJ Harvey out of Denver. Again, I know what you're thinking. No Cam Skattebo, no Quinshon Judkins, guys who I think have a little bit more of a shot to make it. If you want me to break down those guys, Judkins, Skattebo, and some of my sleeper running backs, again, let me know. I'll put it together if you're interested in it. But you gotta drop a comment. You gotta let me know. All right, RJ Harvey here in the Denver offense. I've been very bullish on RJ Harvey, and I'm definitely bullish on him in seasonal leagues as well. Sean Payton likes to get the running back involved. He wants to run the ball. 11th and 17th in rushing volume over the last 2 seasons, but bottom half in yards and touchdowns. He's been trying to get the running back involved. He just can't. We all saw the Javonte Williams of it all last year. Javonte Williams, folks, was somehow still fantasy relevant, and he was so bad. If that alone should get you excited about the idea of RJ Harvey, right? Because he's going to step in and get that volume, but he's not bad. He's good. He's explosive. He's athletic. He wins in short space. He wins in open space. He flips the second gear. He's got excellent downfield acceleration, and he's got excellent hands. And the hands are going to be the key. Javonte Williams was actually second on the team in targets and receptions in 2024. So if anything, my receptions projection could be light for RJ Harvey. I've got him at 33 receptions on 44 targets. You could realistically bump that up to 60, 65 targets, right? The only reason I didn't is because Denver has such good wide receivers that they don't throw the ball to. All right, so let's throw the ball to Marvin Mims. Let's throw the ball to Troy Franklin. What are we doing here, folks? So maybe I'm just willing a little bit more passing in this offense, but I think if you're watching this video, you'll probably agree with me in that hope. J.K. Dobbins, not stressed about J.K. Dobbins. I understand why they signed him. You really can't confidently go into the season with Audric Estime and Jaleel McLaughlin as the backups if RJ Harvey misses time. I think Dobbins is a great spellback. I think they'll want to get him on the field over 100 carries. I think he could win in short yardage situations. I think he could win near the goal line. I think RJ Harvey is going to be the lead back. I think he's going to get 40% of the market share on the ground, 8% of the target share overall in the team. So I think he's going to be a pretty key piece of that offense. I've got him at running back 24, 83 overall. So there's a bit of a gap between running back 22 and 24 in terms of that overall number. And so you should be looking at RJ Harvey about a round and a half later than Kaleb Johnson, just in terms of value. And again, there's just a bit of a drop off in that range. It's packed with wide receivers and a little bit of quarterback there. I should mention, in terms of overall, these are super flex overalls. So just an FYI on that front. Everything I do is super flex. Chuba Hubbard, running back 23, as we talked about. DeAndre Swift, running back 25. By the way, really cheap, good buy right now. DeAndre Swift, either in seasonal or dynasty leagues where you're looking to push the chips in for the season. DeAndre Swift, just a little bonus kind of push there. Does very well in the projections. I know, this doesn't sound like the most exciting comparison, but remember, for a season, everyone liked Clyde Edwards-Helaire. In 2022, we liked him for a season, and he had some really big weeks in that season. And that's why I pulled him up here with RJ Harvey. I think RJ Harvey's the type of guy who's going to have some really big weeks, and that's going to really push up his value. And I think that's what's going to really get us excited about him. But I am excited about all 5 of the running backs that I've talked about on this episode. I'm really excited about the projections overall. If you are not a Rookie Big Board patron, I think you need to check them out. I'll tell you what, it's just $5 a month. So for $5, you could try out the entire site. Not just seasonal projections for every single NFL player, but also my rookie, dynasty, and Devy rankings, personalized advice in the Rookie Big Board Discord, a full scouting notes on all of my 2026 prospects that I'm already watching, college fantasy football rankings. Folks, so much there for you. If you're thinking about trying it out, this should be a really good sample for you. I encourage you to head on over to patreon.com/rookiebigboard. If you're not there yet, if you're not all in, ready to kind of take advantage of those extra resources, how about the free resource, the Rookie Big Board newsletter? That link as well will be in the episode description. Again, first time trying this type of video, so let me know if you're into it. I hope you are, and I expect to be back soon with more 2025 rookie seasonal projections.